A very good evening. This is Hugo Tan. And if you're watching this, it's very likely that you have been seeing our recent Facebook Live video on the 5 killer tips to level up your presentation. And you would have found yourself observing and listening to tips and tricks that are used by public speakers and teachers to connect with their audience better and to get their message across. But one of the feedback that I received after the Facebook Live is, because it is in a video format, I didn't really illustrate out the 5 key ideas, right? The 5 key techniques. So here is what I'm going to do today in this video. I'm going to write out all the 5 techniques that you can use to tweak your presentation. It's like one of those little things, right? Where if you just tweak it a little and everything changes. So it's the same with these 5 techniques you can learn here. Okay, so let's start with the first one. The first technique that you want to implement is humanize it. Humanize. Okay, you want to humanize whatever that you're presenting. People love stories, not just facts. Although facts are what you want to deliver, but the medium you want to deliver your message and your facts to the audience better is through storytelling. At that Facebook Live, I actually reenact the scene where my friend actually called me up and she says, Hugo, I have this presentation upcoming. Do you have 2 to 3 quick tips that I can use immediately to improve my presentation? So I have this whole dialogue back and forth story over there. Why? Because people love story. From our young age, we have been fed with big time stories after story, fables after fables, legends after legends. Up until today, we still gather at campfire and trade stories, ghost stories or otherwise, right? So we love it. How can you implement stories into your message? Do you have any personal stories or stories that you have heard that you think can deliver the lesson or the message that you want? So the first technique is to humanize it. The second technique is what I would call personalize it. If you are like me, who grew up with all these fables and legends of talking dragons and rabbits competing with tortoise and stuff like that, right? So there is always an effort to humanize creatures of legends or even normal animals or plants or even normal everyday household items, right? Like say a clock or a teapot, a talking teapot. All these are efforts to humanize it. But beyond humanizing it, if you realize, they also personalize it. They make them as if they are a person. They give them a name. They give them character. So the same thing with your presentation or lecture or public speaking. All the characters that you mention in your speech, do you give them a name? Do you give them a story? This is the second step, personalize it. The third step is what I would call specify it. A lot of times, what makes a speech great, what makes a story memorable, is that they cover the ground. As in, most of you have heard about the 4W and 1H. You must answer the questions of why, what, when, where, and how. Right? What do you see on the way to the forest? What are you wearing that day? Are you wearing a red hood that day while you are delivering some lunch to your grandmother? What do you see on that day? How do you get there? You walk there, or is there someone who give you a ride deep into the woods to meet your grandmother? How does the house that your grandmother live in What do you hear on the way? So all these are methods to cover grounds and to make your story more fleshed out for your audience to learn and to remember it better. And let's go to the fourth step. The fourth step is what I would call you need to dramatize it. As with all good storytelling and speeches, there need to be an element of drama. You know why so many people are stuck with their Netflix and they chase series after series after series? They're basically binge watching them because humans have an innate need for drama. They love it. They crave for drama. If they aren't drama, some people actually even wants to create drama in their life. They like the challenge and the reconciliation. They love it, right? So how can you involve drama in the stories that you are telling? Put some tension in there. Put some things that the hero or the protagonist need to overcome. Dramatize it. And lastly, visualize it. V for visualize it. You see, every one of us learn and remember things differently. Some are visual creatures, some are auditory creatures, some are more kinesthetic. We have no idea which of this method that your audience are possibly more receptive to. And therefore, in the language that you are using, you want to use a variety of words, whether come here, follow me. These are very action-oriented words, right? And if you are saying things like, if you can see what I see, then you are using very visual words, right? Have you ever heard about, then you are using the auditory language, right? You are using the lingo. You are trying to appeal to auditory, receptive audiences. Not only that, you can also add in props. For example, in a recent presentation of mine, I've actually bring a cup along with me for the presentation because I was speaking to a group of salespeople, and I tell them they all have been learning a lot of sales techniques. Those are like pouring water into the glass, right? Into your cup. All those are great. But you know why some salespeople, having all the techniques and mentors and knowledge that they have, still fail to perform? Then the sales and team leader should look at this. Do they have the right culture to hold this cup of water together? It doesn't matter what you put inside. What matters more is, do you have a container to hold all of this together well? Do they have a culture of accountability? Do they have a culture that rewards high performance? So you see, this way you can use a prop to deliver your message. All these are mediums, just like stories are mediums. Your props are mediums too, to get your story and message across. Okay, with this, it sums out our 5 methods, our 5 killer tips that you can try and implement it in your next presentation. The next time you present, you tell a story. You give names. You give them a character. You flesh out your stories. You cover all the why, the what, so that people have a very clear picture in their mind. You put in some drama. You put in some dialogue. What do they say back and forth? You put in language, words that helps them to visualize better according to their learning mechanism. You put in props to help your presentation become more memorable. At the end of the day, in fact, as soon as the next day, they might have forgotten up to 70% of what you say, but there is a high chance they will remember this cup. With this, that's all for our sharing for today. This is Hugo Tan. If you have more questions on how you can improve your communications, sales, and build a stronger inner game, build a more certain and confident you, do direct message us